We were
Igorot
just talking stuff about
masculinity.
you, so
Wow, I like that. So,
Toxic masculinity. The macho
Igorot toxic
masculinity.
mess.
I mean,
Well, you know what?
Toxic
is it
masculinity.
toxic? I mean, or is it like how you say? Because I think that sometimes if we're starting to call our guys toxic, it's going to be hard for us to define what is actually healthy. Because for a lot of guys,
Okay.
it's about teaching people self-control.
True.
And what I don't
Yeah.
buy into is like if you're going to tell a kid that their aggressive behavior is toxic, then what are you turning them into? Are you trying to feminize them in a certain way? Because then what replaces that? And then I think that's a hard thing. Um, and I hear this because there's a lot of dialogue. I've been reading Bell Hooks. I don't know if you've ever read her. She's an African American activist. Um, and and feminist, and she has this book called All About Love, and one of the things that she talks about, and I don't remember her using the toxic masculinity term, but she has talked about like negative aspects of how males, especially African American males, have embraced, the dynamic of patriarchy, uh uh and power in love, and that it is manifested in things that look dishonest. And it's not just males, of course. I mean, females could certainly do this too, but you could see it like in a line, and that's very prevalent in there. And there's a danger, I believe, based on some of the readings that I've read from her and then other folks' writings, that if we define certain behaviors that look like it's toxic masculinity as negative, then what we do is we demasculate, we dehumanize a guy. And then what else do you have? If you lose like the identity of who you think you are, then you don't actually teach them the capacity to actually have self-control or mastery over that thing that's creating a negative antisocial behavior. So to me, I'm a little bit like I'm concerned about that term, because obviously it's prevalent now in our culture, and people are using it in a way that's saying that the way guys behave is wrong and negative. Um, and I think it definitely needs a certain kind of evaluation of, okay, what's it replacing? What are we really talking about? Are we talking about retribution, revenge for people who have certainly felt powerless under like certain patriarchy? Because I don't feel like I've been part of the masculine patriarchy. So I mean, would I want that privilege? Oh, well, maybe, because then I don't have to think about certain things. But at the same time, uh, uh, no, this is who God created me to be. So obviously, then it's worth embracing, and especially because I think Asian guys, especially coming to into the into the Western world here, we get demasculized all over the place. In fact, Dave Chappelle had a piece on it, about Manny Pacquiao losing his deal. And it was part of one of his comedy skits, but he had mentioned Manny Pacquiao losing his shoe deal from Nike, because he'd made a blurb about gay people. And yeah, Manny Pacquiao made a mistake, but I think also what Chappelle was saying was that, hey, other people say worse stuff and they don't get cut like that. And it's an interesting point of view. Chappelle's also married to a Filipino woman, so he probably hears it from a different point of view at home.
Yeah,
So
he probably hears his wife like saying, "Man, that's messed up," and any Filipino issue she probably brings up. Yeah.
yeah.
He kind of hinted at that, actually. Because he was his wife. The last one he did, his wife talked about him and Asian jokes about Asian folks, Filipinos in general, and kind of tell him to curb that a little bit. and he was kind of like talking about like, well, I can't help it, man. Can't be too politically correct and all this other stuff. But political correctness does have its place in terms of like trying to help people open their eyes a little bit. I'm not gonna say the word woke, but like, but just to kind of bring a certain awareness, so that maybe people will think twice when they blurt out something. But it depends on, it's all, again, everything's about context and relationship, right? I mean, if it's a comedy show, that's one thing. If they're saying it like to somebody at their job, it's another, right? But yeah, I think like when it comes to the those kind of dynamics of toxic masculinity, I think from Igorot perspective, I know the things that people might bring up, and the biggest issue will be drinking.
Drinking.
Drinking it to
Drinking.
excess.
Oh man.
I'm sure, because in
We
our
have a lot of
community, that's a
Bartakera out there, man.
yeah, man. And it's, but then there's some the thing about drinking though, and I'm not trying to glorify it or anything like that, but in our traditionally in our culture, like when the prayers are done, all the prayers are always affirmed, you know, by everybody taking a swig of some tapoy, right? So it's like it's kind of like it's part of the culture in some weird sense. But the problem is that there's obviously a certain context that's removed. See, in that context, there's prayers connected to it,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then there's
And probably what
there's a
to get
spiritual
drunk. Like it's not
there's a spirituality connected to it. So,
yeah.
And usually like the over drinking is connected to, like, it could be connected to somebody's dawak, their marriage, a big kanyao, they're celebrating a hunting party or something like that, or harvest, right? So those drinking moments are celebrated during some
Celebration.
type of celebration that's connected to ritual, right? A lot
Mhm.
of times, or but like now it's gone to that excess that you were talking about, where it's like, man, it can be like almost every night. As long as the guys have the budget, they go out and, man, they can just drink to excess. and
Well,
and I think it has a little bit to do with the how, maybe especially over here, we have a lot of folks who uh self-esteem wise, and they're missing home. Some don't
Mm,
have papers. They're
yeah.
well, they don't
undocumented.
feel on par with the
Yeah, they-
with
with
the
everybody
population
else.
there.
I mean,
And I
yeah, especially if you're TNT or something like that. And so there was layers in terms of like why they consistently drink. But then it's also connected to that sense of like um I don't know, I want to say if it's manliness. I don't want to say that, but that sense of like, hey man, like this is what we do as friends. This is what we do as our brotherhood almost. It's more like a brotherhood, like this is what we do is, like, and I know that if you're drinking with me, you're not judging me. You're being a part of my crew,
actually
you're being one of
that's
my
true. You'll hear that
boys.
a lot.
And
If you could drink with me, then you're part of that. And
yeah,
definitely when
they
I
don't
was
feel like they're
last
being
time I was in
judged.
UK, last time I was in UK and I took a couple swigs with those guys, that's definitely what I
Yeah.
heard repeated over and over again was, "Oh, you're
Mhm.
like one of us." And that's
Yeah,
important
yeah.
to the guys who feel they're demasculated already in a place
Yeah,
that,
there's that weird connection to being demasculated,
right, right.
because they
And
don't feel
Chappelle
like they
certainly
can be
talks
on
about
par.
that in that comedy in his last comedy skit piece that he did. And that's something to be, I mean, that's something to pay attention
It's
to.
something to consider. Yeah, it's something to consider and think about. So I think, like, in terms of like trying to put some discipline in terms of like the control aspect. I don't know. What do you guys think? Are there suggestions that you feel from your perspective? Then
Responsibility.
yeah, responsibility. But I'm just curious from the female perspective. Like you're
Mm,
witnessing this from the female
mhm.
perspective in your community. So like what is your personal thoughts, and in terms of like as a community, kind of like working
And the
with this
drinking?
issue, you know?
And is
Huh?
gambling also an issue there too?
No, I don't
Amongst
think so.
it's
It's just
mostly
mostly
the
alcohol.
drinking. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think most of because probably because of COVID and like that the gatherings don't happen as much anymore. I don't see it as much anymore.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Mm.
and even like the few gatherings that we had before that, like they had drinks, but like it wasn't as bad as before. And now they're actually because one thing that the uncles do that like we hate so much is that they drink and drive, and it's
Oh,
so dangerous.
that's
And it's
ooh, no good.
we've spoken about it for like many years, right? We would tell them about it,
Mhm.
but actually now they've learned. So what they do is they designate a driver, they call a cab or Uber.
Oh wow.
And that's
Mhm.
like most of the stuff that they do now because they like to go like play darts somewhere or something and they will
Mhm.
drink, so then they like or they call like they're like, okay, my daughter drives now. I'll get her to drive the car and bring us home and stuff like that. So it's
Right.
like that like the frequency right now is like really low compared to before, and the habit of them drinking and driving is much lower as well. So I can't really say much about like the alcoholism. I mean, like I don't know what happens at their house because I
Mm.
know that there are some Igorot dads that drink every day at their house, a beer or two, right? I can't
Mhm.
I can't speak for them, but like with what I see in gatherings and stuff, it's gotten better. Like obviously it's not like 100%, but it's all right
Yeah.
at this point. But I think the one of the bigger masculinity traits of Igorots that I wanted to speak about is their like their macho culture. It's like, oh, guys don't do that, or like girls only do that. Um,
Oh.
I was while you guys were speaking, I was trying to think of an example, but like I'm sure you guys have seen that, like, oh,
Oh,
I'm not gonna change the
drinking
baby
is part of that
diaper.
big thing.
Yeah,
Drinking
Used
is
to
a
be
part of
cigarette
that.
smoking too. I remember
Oh,
yeah,
us
cigarette
hearing a lot of
smoking.
times,
Yeah. Yeah.
oh, you're not a man if you don't smoke.
yeah, true. That's true.
Yeah, even the old priests used to smoke a ton, man, because that's what they
Oh,
learned when they were
right.
young.
That's what,
So,
I'm like, oh heck no, I'm not gonna spend, $5 for the pack of that stuff and
Yeah.
eventually, take out $100 out of my paycheck for that. No, no, you could have your lung cancer.
but no, but like,
Yeah.
yeah, you're talking about like just keep on going.
Oh,
I
like
just want to hear you define that a little bit more. Or
oh, so like some
yeah.
men are like, um, oh, like I won't change the baby's diaper. That's a woman's job.
Oh,
Oh
that.
I
yeah.
won't
Yeah,
feed
yeah,
the baby.
yeah, yeah.
It's a woman's job. Or like why? Oh,
Yeah.
these are like more of the really small town mentality people. But like it's like
Hmm.
um apa yung babaunan dak, you know? Like
Yeah.
I'm
Well.
the only one to like ask you to do things. Like, why are you asking me to do things? That kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's not obviously it's not everyone, but it's like you see it.
There's a certain
Yeah.
level of disagreeability and not wanting to kind of like help out. But we're in the,
Mhm,
in Canada and America, and I'm sure in like
mhm.
in Europe too. Uh, Men are expected nowadays to help,
Yeah, that's what I'm
in
saying.
that.
Right.
That has
Yeah.
evolved. That has evolved.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, I don't know how it is in the Philippines though. Is that still kind of like has that shifted yet?
I don't know. I haven't gone back or spent that like a long time when I have, so I haven't observed. But again,
Mm.
like my family is pretty progressive, so the men do that. It's pretty equal.
Is this your observation that there's a little bit more kind of like egalitarian structure in Igorot households in terms of like a male, like husband and wife being able to, uh, um, in that relationship having equal say?
Um. Yeah. Sorry. Can you repeat? Can you repeat the question?
Well, well, the way I'm pretty sure I think Mark would agree with this, but our parents had very equal say in the
Oh.
happenings of the relationship and
Yeah.
happenings of the
Mhm.
household.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and that was just how things operated. So I always kind of like looked at it from a very egalitarian kind of way. Whereas, like, if I have Ilocano friends, and it's very matriarchal, very matriarchal. The guys never say anything. They just kind of like sit in the back and smoke, and
Mm-hmm.
it's they're always quiet. And then when they ask, and then when the matriarch asks to do something, then they do something. But they don't say very much. And I
Mm-hmm.
noticed that.
Mhm.
But in Igorot household, oftentimes there's certain like egalitarianness. But I don't know. That's our household, and maybe that was the same way in your household because it leans a little bit more progressively.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
It's the same with me. It's pretty equal.
mm.
Um. Yeah. I mean, like, not to say that I've observed as well. Some other families where it's very uh matriarchal. So, like, I've seen
Mm.
that in Igorot families as well. And so
Oh, okay.
it's not uncommon. I mean, it's not that common, but it's not something unknown to us as well. It does happen. Um, another behavior that I don't like with some of the Igorot guys that I've observed, I guess,
Yeah.
is that they're
But
very
observer
aloof.
dated.
Let's go with observed.
Cool.
They're very
Okay.
aloof. They don't talk about their feelings. They don't talk about, they don't have these difficult conversations that you need in a relationship. And, or like, okay, let's go buy something in the store. And he makes me go buy the thing, like, quite, like, you know what I mean? Or like order food and I have to order it. I don't understand. Like, I mean, he doesn't have to do it all the time. I'm not asking him to do it all the time.
Mhm.
But like, but I do it all the time, that kind of thing,
Mm.
you know?
Oh,
Mm.
wow.
And they're very aloof.
Yeah,
They don't
yeah.
talk. They like, they're not straight with their
Uh,
feelings. And it's just like they show you that they kind of like you. And
yeah.
then they don't like you. And then they show you that they like you. And then they get mad when you like
Uh-huh.
decide not to like them. Like, excuse
Yeah,
me.
They're like
that's
kind of
Excuse
passive
definitely
aggressive.
that's definitely
Yeah,
those
passive
are
aggressive. Yeah.
examples of like
Mm.
toxic masculinity. And I'm on the same boat as Jay in terms of how I feel about the whole um popularization of the term, but
Mm-hmm.
definite examples of like negative behaviors of human behaviors. But yeah,
Yeah.
toxic masculinity. Because like I was just thinking about this too, and in a more traditional Igorot machismo way, like this discussion wouldn't be a very manly macho thing. The fact that we're like talking, because the
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
traditional stoic Igorot man is quiet, very self reserved or whatever. The fact that we're taking the time out of our day to like talk with other dudes, that's so like that's what women do. You know what I mean? Even the
Mm-hmm.
fact that
Mhm. Yeah.
like I know you guys pretty well, so like the way you bring up your children, the way you talk to your kids, the way we're into nerdy stuff, that's not traditionally manly things. The fact that I like Star Wars,
Yeah.
Jay, Mark, we all like all these
Oh,
nerdy
yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, but
Yeah.
like definitely, like I know what you're talking about, Denai, because like growing up,
Yeah.
that's how my dad was kind of like towards me. So growing up, I always hated like my dad. I was like, oh, my dad, I'll never be like my dad, whatever. But like,
Mm.
I guess as time goes on, like, and the fact that my dad's gotten older, he just doesn't care about that stuff. Doesn't care about the fact that I'm not manly enough or whatever like that. But I do agree in terms of the traditional idea of masculinity that there are a lot of like negative aspects to it. Because like honestly, like I'm not sure if you guys agree, but like this sort of discussion that we're having is wouldn't fall. You know what I mean? It's not manly. Like even
Mm-hmm.
within Latino culture, like people from Cuba, they wouldn't have stuff like this. Maybe if we were drunk. The only time men would talk is when they're drunk, when
yeah,
they're
yeah, yeah.
fucked up, right? But so yeah, in a sense, I do agree with that. There's a lot of stuff that has passed away through time, which is like
Mm.
Mhm.
all this men being not talking about their feelings and stuff, not being friendly with each other.
Yeah.
Like me and my friends, I always joke about like touching each other. You know what I mean? Like we make fun about we make fun of our masculinity, as opposed to if I was growing up back in the 70s in the barrio, or sorry, in the Ely or something, where it wouldn't fall that way. You know what I mean? So that is
Yeah.
something that is a cool observation and a conversation to be had. Because I think if we were to have somebody much older, like one of the older generation, it would be a totally different conversation on their end. You know what I mean? So that's just my
Mhm. Mhm.
that's just my take
The
on it.
conversation probably would have ended already. Like there would not be a conversation if there was like someone